Hi guys, I'm Max Landis and I'm here to pitch you my movie idea. This is the best movie ever made. Do you know what I'll say at the start of my pitch when I pitch this to Paramount Motion Pictures Incorporated or Netflix, which is gonna happen because this is the best film ever thought of. This is what I'm gonna pitch it. I'm gonna start my pitch with, bear in mind as I say this film literally cannot fail. There is no way this film can fail. And the reason this film can't fail is because this film is a crossover. It's a simultaneous crossover sequel, much like Alien vs. Predator, to two amazing, incredible franchises with inbuilt fan bases. It is a crossover sequel to the National Treasure series, that is National Treasure 1 and National Treasure 2 Book of Secrets, starring Nick Cage as Mr. National Treasure, and it's also The Mummy 4, starring Brendan Fraser. It's a crossover between The Mummy and National Treasure. It's a crossover sequel to them both. Now, your first thing might be, your first thought might be, this is the most genius thing I've ever heard in my life. Tell me more, no thank you. But your second thought might be, hold on a minute, I thought National Treasure was set in the modern day, but The Mummy was set in like the 40s. How does that make any sense? You're right about that. So it's gonna be Brendan Fraser playing the son of the guy from the original movies. It's his son in this movie, but he looks exactly the same because it's Brendan Fraser. It's his grown-up older. It's the guy's son, but it's still the Mummy. And here's the plot of the film. Okay, so here's the plot of the fucking movie. Here's my pitch. So it starts off with Nicolas Cage, and he's there, and he's retired. He's retired. This is they pull me back in type of story. He's retired, and he's retired from being a treasure hunter, and I was trying to, I thought we need some snappy social commentary in my film. So this film is about the opioid crisis in America, the opioid crisis, by having a drug epidemic. So there's this new drug going across the street. It's this like milky white liquid you inject. There's a new drug sweeping the youth of America, and it's destroying the youth of America. It's this new substance called Mummy Milkies, that you inject, and it's it's destroying the nation because it turns people into mummies, and don't worry, then this is all over the news and everything because turn people into mummies, and then the first bad guy of the movie, who's sort of like, you know how in movies there's like the businessman or gangster guy who thinks he can control or make a deal with the big evil powerful monster, and then in the end of the film the big powerful monster betrays him. It's that guy he's played by Javier Bardem, and he goes on stage and he's like, actually this Mummy Milkies is distributed, it all goes back to Nicolas Cage's great grandfather John Wilkes Booth. And he goes on stage, and then Nicolas Cage is like, no, I have to restore the honor of my family. I have to find the origin of this drug and stop the drug trade. I have to stop the drug trade by finding the origin of this drug. So he starts doing research. That's the A plot. Cut to Brendan Fraser. He's doing research about treasure, and he finds out there's going to be this treasure. Oh, there's a treasure in the mountains of Peru. Now, the astute mummy experts among the audience may have noticed that I am paying off the sequel bait setup that was at the end of The Mummy 3. At the end of The Mummy 3, they sequel bait set up by saying that mummies were discovered in Peru at the end of that movie. So this movie is set in Peru, partially. So he's like, I need to get to Peru to fight these mummies and and get the treasure. That's his thing. Oh, also, Nicolas Cage is okay. Wait, that happens later. Okay, so then Nicolas Cage, there's sort of like this refusal of the cool thing. Actually, this can happen to. So Nick Cage needs a reason, right? To do this because he's trying to restore his family honor, but also his son was kidnapped by Javier Bardem and is being held in these caves in Mexico or whatever. In Peru. He's that's what's happening, and so he needs to go rescue his son. And he's trying to think of ways to do this, and so is Brendan Fraser wants to also go to the same Peru place, but here's what's happened, right? Is the gang that makes the drug, Mommy Milky's, the gang that makes the drug, has taken refuge in this ancient cave citadel in Peru, right? They've taken refuge. That's their like main base of operation where they synthesize Mommy Milky's by exploiting Peruvian mummies, by milking these Peruvian mummies, right? So he wants to go there to stop the drug trade, but Brendan Fraser wants to go there to get the ancient treasure that is kept there and guarded by the drug cartel in Peru. So they both want to go to the same place for different reasons at the same time. And so Nicolas Cage and they still haven't met each other, by the way. They think, how the fuck are we going to get down to Peru and defeat all these mummies? And this is where the genius part of the film comes in, because in every National Treasure movie, all two of them, there's the best scene in the movie. In the first one, Nicolas Cage turns to the camera and he says, I'm gonna kidnap the president of the United States. Yeah, that's the first one. I'm gonna kidnap the president of the United States of America. That's what he says. And then in the second movie, he says, I want to steal a Declaration of Independence. I think that's the order it is. It might be the other way around. It's been a while. No, the first one is the Declaration of Independence. The second one is the president. Yes. The second one's the president. The first one's the Declaration of Independence. I think. So we need to have a line like that. We need to have he needs to steal something that is America. He needs to steal something American, but the movie's going to be set in Peru. So what does he steal? The only way to get to Peru is to steal Air Force One. I'm going to steal Air Force One, the plane of the president of Obama from the United States of America. That's what he says in the movie. He says that line. And he's going to go steal Air Force One. Brendan Fraser has also come to the same conclusion, that the only way to get there is to steal Air Force One. They both separately come to this conclusion, right? The reason is because Air Force One is secretly, according to secret Pentagon archives, like a super weapon, which is the only thing that's going to be able to take out all of the mummies, because the mummies are going to attack, and any regular plane will just be killed by all the mummies. But Air Force One has really powerful guns on it, special anti-gun mummy guns to kill all the mummies. So they have to steal Air Force One. And they both arrive at the same... They both separately come up with the exact same plan to steal Air Force One. There's a great montage where it's cutting back and forth, and they're both basically explaining the same plan to their little group of people, but separately. So, like, finishing each other's sentences, but in completely separate locations and independently. Like, we have to steal it on this day, because on this day, the guard rotation is going to be this, this, and this, and if we go in at this point, they're describing like a heist movie, right? How they're going to do it. So it happens, and then when it happens, you see them both, they both come and steal Air Force One, and they run into each other, and it's like, what are you doing here? I was going to try and steal Air Force One. No, I was going to try and steal Air Force One. And it's like a funny comedy moment when they bump into each other trying to steal Air Force One. Right? It's great. It's a great scene. It's a brilliant scene, because they're like, what are you doing here? You know, it's great, and it's comedy. And they figure out, like, oh, we actually both want to go to the same place. We're doing this for the same reasons. We should work together on this, right? I was thinking, should this be a buddy cop thing or a versus thing? I thought the buddy cop dynamic is much better, because you want to see that, right? You want to see comedy interactions between Nick Cage and Brendan Fraser. Like, you just want to see that. So it is at this point, to rack up the tension, that the main bad guys, so Javier Bardem's like mini boss, like his right hand man, was called Nikolai. He's a Russian guy because he's a bad guy, and the bad guys are Russians in movies. Nikolai is like collaborating with the corrupt police and whatever, and they're like chasing them down the runway, and he's like, God damn it, they got away. But it's like a tense moment where there's like an escape scene where, you know, they're chasing after them, but then they escape in Air Force One, they fly away in Air Force One. Nikolai's like, oh no, they flew away in Air Force One, what am I going to do? He calls back to Javier Bardem. Javier Bardem's like, oh fuck, well, let's make sure we are ready for them when they get to Peru. So they get to Peru, and this is the bit of the movie that's the least fleshed out. So they get to Peru. There's mummies outside Peru guarding the cave system, and they're doing menacing. They're clicking their fingers in menacing ways, like a West Side Story type of thing, right? And then the Air Force One comes, just miniguns, kills them all. It's an action scene where the mummies are just little mummies. They're helpless, and Air Force One just comes and just kills them all with machine guns. So then they land in the jungle, and they trek through the Peruvian jungle to this cave system. At some point while they're in the jungle, there's an action scene where mummies come out and attack them, and they have to fight off the mummies. But they're also following clues like a National Treasure movie, where they're following clues left by the ancient ruins in the jungle to get to the ancient cave system, which no one knows exactly where it is except for the mummy gang that produces the mummy Milky's drug and distributes it to America. So they're following these ancient symbols from the route to try and get to it. All the while, the ticking clock is they're being chased by Nikolai, who's reporting back to Javier Bardem. That's the ticking clock. Nikolai is following them. They have to do it quickly, right? That's the ticking clock element. Obviously, eventually they find the Peruvian cave structure, and they see all the mummies close up. This is the first time you get... It's not really, but whatever. Organized mummy society. It's interesting. Where they're sort of being forced to do labor to manufacture this drug. Mummy Milky's, right? It's an interesting thing. And so then, just as they find the place, and you think that it's a release of tension, and the audience sits back and is not expecting it, that's when they get captured by Nikolai, who captures them and is like surrounds them with a group of mummies and with machine guns pointed at them, and is like, I've captured you now. And they're like, oh fuck, we've been captured. And then they get locked in a cage, and Brendan Fraser turns to the camera and says, what is this, some kind of Nikolai Cage? And it's a very funny moment. That's the only reason he's in the movie, Nikolai, is just for that joke. And a laugh track plays. And then it sounds kind of like Nicolas Cage, who's the other actor. The guy, he's the other actor in the movie. His name in real life, the actor who plays, whatever his name is, from National Treasure. The actor, his real name is Nicolas Cage, and they're in a cage by a guy called Nicol. It's kind of like, it's a joke. It's a joke. And so, they escaped the Nikolai Cage, obviously, and they've made this is where they fucked up, right? Because now that they've been captured, they're already in the cave system, ancient ruin cave system, Peruvian mummies in the jungle. They've already been brought in to the caves to be locked in. So that's how you avoid having to make them. That's my clever narrative device, so they don't have to have a full frontal attack with a bunch of fucking armed people against two guys. They actually got captured and brought in, and then they escaped, and that's how they get in. And then they're sort of sneaking around the back, and eventually they find Javier Bardem. Oh, Nikolai dies. When they're escaping the cage, they kill Nikolai, by the way. That's what happens. In a satisfying way. But then they're escaping the cage, they're trying to find the treasure, and they're trying to find Nicolas Cage's son, and they're going deeper and deeper into this ancient ruins/cave system, and there's mummies occasionally, and eventually they fight their way to Javier Bardem, and Javier Bardem is like, ahaha, you think you've captured me, but you'll never defeat the king of the mummies, the king of the Peruvian mummies, who is here in this cave system and is really the true overlord of all of us, and he's who I report to, and he's like, oh, Lord King of the Mummies, and this is the bit where he's going to get betrayed by the ancient power that he's awakened in order to become a drug kingpin. He opens these grand doors to the King of the Mummies, and the King of the Mummies is Jason Statham, And he says, all right, mate, I'm the fucking king of the mummies, mate. And Jason Statham's there, the king of the mummies, the king of the Peruvian mummies. And he just is like, I have no more need for you. And he just kills Javier Bardem like it's fucking nothing. And then you have a really cool action set piece with Nick Cage and Jason Statham and fucking Brendan Fraser. They don't have guns because it was all taken away from them when they were locked in the cage. So they don't have any guns. They have to. It's a kung fu fight. It's like a martial arts fight, 2-on-1. Nick Cage and Brendan Fraser in fucking hand-to-hand martial art combat with Jason Statham, who is a magical supernatural mummy king from Peru, and it's all fucking awesome, and they win, and they get the treasure, and they get Nick Cage's son, and they come back home on Air Force One, and they've destroyed the Mummy Milky's trade, and they have the cure for Mummy Milky disease, which turns you into a mummy. They have the cure, which they find in the boss room. They have the cure, which they find among the treasure, and they bring it back to America, they cure everyone. Nicolas Cage clears his family name, because he can say, look, it was Jason Statham the whole time, it was Javier Bardem the whole time, and he clears his family name, and that's the end of the movie! And it's basically, the thing is, this movie can't fail, right? Because who wouldn't watch that? Like, let's be honest, who wouldn't watch that just out of sheer curiosity? Its movie can't fail.